Hi, and welcome back to Pace Law Firm, pacelawfirm.com. Talking today with Damien May, the Clinical Director of Elder Care Navigators in Toronto. Damien, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you, Sean.
We were just taking a quick look at your website just before we went on camera. It looks great. It's at ecnavigators.com. Damien, tell us a little bit about what Elder Care Navigators is and what do you do?
Well, I'm a geriatric care manager, and there's not a whole lot of us here in Toronto. Essentially, there are more people over the age of 65 than there are under the age of 14. And the system is opaque as we know it. If a senior gets injured or is having difficulties, a caregiver is trying to find services and they just don't know how to navigate the system. Hence the name Navigators.
Absolutely. Where did you get this, where did your company start and how's it been going so far?
Well, I've been a clinician for 30 years, done a lot of work in motor vehicle accidents, brain injury. I've worked in hospital working with stroke. And 3 years ago, my dad passed, and down in North Carolina, and he passed well because he had all the supports that he needed. He had a family who loved him. He had good health care. He had all the supports in place, and he passed as well as anybody could hope. You know, seniors go through three levels. You have the go-go, the slow-go, and the no-go. And what Elder Care Navigators tries to do is reduce functional decline. At a certain point, there are certain things you have difficulty doing. We find workarounds.
Okay, so let's say there's someone listening right now, and unfortunately they have a father or a mother who's having trouble. What would be your first step in helping that person?
Well, first I do a comprehensive assessment, and by comprehensive, I'm talking about 16 pages. I look at the medical history, I look at the social history, I look at what's important in your life. I look at, are you connected? After doing that, I sit down with the family, I sit down with the senior, and I lay out for them what their snapshot looks like right now. Then what I do is I let them know these are the opportunities and the options that you have. This is how much it will cost, and you can run with it yourself, or I can manage it for you.
Now, I know you were talking about a quick example you wanted to give people out there to bring it into focus. Just talk about maybe a client or two that you've had in your life and with your company that you've helped out.
Great. Well, just before Christmas, I had a beautiful woman who suffered a stroke. As a matter of fact, her family said, Damien, she had a left cerebral artery infarct. At which point I said, oh, she had a stroke.
Okay.
They didn't know what that meant.
Right.
She suffered aphasia, which is a severe impairment of speech, and they were completely lost. So I went in, I met with the hospital, I got access to all the medical records, I translated all the information to the family, I coordinated care for her so that she was discharged a week early into rehab. And when she was in rehab, I worked with the treatment team there, got her discharged 2 weeks early. The thing that the treatment team really liked was the fact that I'm the one who has the difficult conversations. I have the conversations with the family, I have the conversations with the physician, and I have the conversations with the client. Subsequent to her discharge, she suffered what, again, was severe aphasia. Mm-hmm. The health system will provide services, but they provide just enough to survive, not to thrive. In her particular case, she wanted speech and language therapy. She would have had to wait 6 weeks and get it once a week at the hospital. I was able to find access for speech and language therapy to go into the home with a great discount. Basically, if someone else had been looking for a speech and language pathologist, it would have cost $5,000 just for the first month. I saved her $3,800.
Wow. Okay, so I mean, we all know that the healthcare system is complicated. But just how complicated is it when it comes to, caring for an older person? If someone were to try to do this on their own, what are they facing?
Okay, let's say that you are a caregiver for a person with Alzheimer's disease. Very common situation. You tend to be over the age of 46. You tend to be 57% are working full time, and they are spending approximately 47 hours per week providing care. A lot of that is being on the phone, talking to community care access centers, which is the point of contact for people who have needs for seniors. Unfortunately, the system is set up to be complementary and to supplement the care that families and friends provide. So what we have is a two-tiered health system.
Right, right. Now, let's bring this back to Pace Law Firm for a second, in the sense that sometimes what can happen with people is they are caring for someone and then they themselves get injured. So, for instance, they get into an auto accident or some other life-changing incident where they can now no longer immediately care for the person that they've been taking care of. How can you help that person?
Well, there are a number of different things that we can do. Of course, through the legislation, there is access to funding for caregivers who are unable to do that caregiving any longer. It's peanuts compared to what they actually need. But the other thing is that there's recourse through the public services that the senior is currently experiencing. For example, CCAC, once again, will come in and do a reassessment if I urge them to, at which point they may adjust the number of hours that the caregiver gets for services because they are incapacitated to give those. Because when CCAC goes in, they do a measure as to what does a person need and what current supports are in place. If those supports alter in any way, you need to reassess. But people do not know how to access that or how to ask for it.
Okay, so then how can they ask you for it?
Well, they can call me, 416-450-8054, and they can see me through my website. I tend to have a 48-hour response time. If somebody is urgently in need, I will see them within 48 hours. My assessment is done within 7 to 10 days, guaranteed.
Now, you were mentioning also that if someone is a client of yours and the phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Absolutely. Someone calls me at 3 a.m. and says, Mom just went to the hospital. I'm at the ER at 3:30. You know, the other thing, too, that's very interesting is caregivers go through a huge amount of trauma when a person suddenly has a stroke, is needing to transition, or is incapacitated in any way. Many family members have power of attorney. And one of the problems with that is, while they have power of attorney, they haven't been educated as to what that actually means. One of the first things that I do when I come on in is I take a look at who is power of attorney and do you really understand that? In this particular case, we had 2 powers of attorney, one who was a long-distance caregiver living in London, England, and there was complete confusion as to what that actually meant. They were completely unaware that according to the Substitute Decision Makers Act, they had an obligation under the law to open the will. They were very, very uncomfortable with that. They felt that was invasive and intrusive. However, I was able to get an estate lawyer who was also a chartered accountant to come in, look at all the books to make sure that the powers of attorney had done everything according to what was necessary and that there was no liability for them.
Now, I know, Damien, before the interview we were talking about how you do speaking engagements as well to educate people. Maybe talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. I go into churches, talk to seniors groups, I talk to hospital teams, and I discuss issues of importance. Forward planning, transitioning, understanding what the needs of seniors are. When do you ask the questions? And when is the best time to do the planning? Of course, like a dentist, I say prevention is always the best way to go.
Okay.
The other thing, too, is I try to educate as to what is geriatric care management. Not all geriatric care managers are created equal. I'm a member of the National Association of Professional Geriatric Care Managers. It took me a couple days to learn how to say that without stumbling.
Okay.
But we're a professional organization, and to be part of this organization, you have to be a professional healthcare provider. You have to be certified or licensed. I'm a certified social worker. I have my registration with the college. I have a series of obligations that I have to fall under. You also have geriatric care managers who took care of Mom for a while and got her into long-term care and said, hey, I think I can do this. Or some financial planners who have a really good grasp of what the financial needs are, but for the life of them can't read a medical chart.
True enough, true enough. One more time with the contact details, how can people get a hold of you right away?
They can contact me at djmay@ecnavigators.com, or they can go to ecnavigators.com, or they can call me at 416-450-8054.
Excellent. Damien May, the Clinical Director of Elder Care Navigators. Reach him at ecnavigators.com. Reach us at pacelawfirm.com, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.